This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that keeps you up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm Joshua Cicora, your host for this week. We've got a full show for you today, so stay tuned for the back half of the episode where we talk to Mark Benefiel about veterans and what they do once they reach Medicare age. Then we're going to have Gerald Eidelman on talking about protecting your children's inheritance from predatory spouses. Ugh. And to round out the show, we've got Lauren Dietz to return to the conversation about tariffs and how they affect taxpayers. Now, I say return the conversation there because that's really the big theme for today's episodes. Trump's tariffs have kind of thrown the stock markets into a bit of disarray. A lot of the people we're meeting with right now are asking us about the tariffs. What are tariffs? How are they going to impact us? And so I thought we'd kind of kick the show off talking a little bit about exactly what tariffs are, what they do, what they're intended to do, and then how we will see that impact us as individuals. So a tariff at its most basic function is a levy the government places, or a tax, if you will, on goods that are imported into the country. So let's say you're a widget manufacturer, and so you buy steel from well, China's been in the news a lot, so let's just pick on China. So you buy your steel from China, you pay, I don't know, $100 a foot for steel. Let's make some stuff up here. And the government comes in and says, well, we're having this trade situation with China. So now while you're normally paying $100 for your unit of steel, now you're going to pay $150. $100 goes back to whoever you're buying it from in China. And then the other $50 goes to us, Uncle Sam. Well, now that company that bought that steel, their cost of goods is 50% higher. So they have two choices: either absorb that into their profit margin or pass that cost on to the consumers. And most companies, that's anticipated, is going to pass that on right along to the consumer. So that means we are anticipating seeing higher costs for anything that comes in from outside the country. And so in an announcement earlier this week, or last week, I guess it is now, the White House went out and laid out these tariffs they're going to be placing on virtually every country around the globe. Rates from 10% for a lot of countries. Other countries are getting higher rates, and we could talk a little bit about how that's being calculated. Breaking news as we're recording this is that China is facing a 104% tariff rate. So anything that comes in from China is going to cost twice as much, a little more than twice as much as it normally would. And it's widely expected that that's going to impact all of our wallets in the form of higher costs when we go to buy things. In fact, I was just reading a report earlier today, a news article talking about iPhones, because a lot of iPhone production takes place in China. And it is expected that the cost for your basic iPhone is going to go up. And then nobody really knows how much, because quite frankly, Apple hasn't said anything. When asked, they've been silent about it, but it's expected that cost for something like that could in fact triple as they deal with where all these different things come from. And that knowing that is coming is then throwing the stock market into disarray. We've seen over the last several days a drop in the market on par with COVID. When COVID was raging, and we watched the market value evaporate over a matter of a few days. That's how the market is reacting to something like this. In part because they know what's going to happen, and in part out of fear of they don't know what's going to happen. And so we've got to marry those two things together and try to piece out an economy to move forward. So there's a lot of fear going on with this. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of disarray. And so it's important to be working with a team of advisors who can help you navigate retirement in this time of uncertainty. Times are very turbulent. What are you doing to protect your nest egg? Is there even anything you can do to protect against this kind of thing? Well, all it takes to find out is 15 minutes. If you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call to see what you might be missing in your retirement plans, reach out to us right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There, you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisory Group team. Now, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking with financial advisor Danny Goolsby about how these tariffs impact retirement plans specifically. And now we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour. We've got Danny Goolsby in studio with me right now. Danny, with Trump's tariffs taking effect and the stock market being volatile like a roller coaster, and it's getting even worse, what does that mean for people's retirement accounts?
Well, it has a whole lot more, a lot of unintended consequences, if you will. The potential impact of tariffs on retirement plans can be several different avenues, if you will. First off, it's the obvious one that everyone's been talking about in the last couple of weeks, and that's the volatility that's in the market. The market seems like for the last 36 months or so, because of the Magnificent Seven stocks and thereabouts, the market's just been going up and up and up and up, just melting up, as they say. And but then you see that what has been in a good time, the Mag 7 stocks making the market go up. Now the Mag 7 stocks are making the market go down because of the uncertainty of these tariffs you're talking about. When it comes to tariffs, they could affect many different parts of our life. As I said, the obvious one is the volatility in the stock market. But then you look at further, what is a tariff, as you talked about in the previous segment? It's actually a tax, if you will. You said those words. Okay, so if things are going to cost more because of countries putting tariffs on one another in kind of a rivalry of going back and forth, well, you'll hit me with 20, well, I'll hit you with 50. Well, you hit me with 50, I'll hit you with 100. Yeah. And so those trickle down to or dribble down to the market where you and I are, where we go to the store. Things cost more money too, and so there's a couple of things right off the bat that tariffs are going to be bad for. The first thing is you're watching the stock market. So if you're a consumer and you have your 401k or your retirement plan nest egg, you're watching what the markets are doing to your nest egg and how that's eroding away. The second thing that's happening, because of tariffs can be more expensive on goods and services, then it costs that could be inflationary. And so things cost more money because of these tariffs, and I have less money in my 401k to buy them. And so I'm getting kind of hit from both sides with that. Have you ever seen that before?
We it's gallows humor, but we make the joke about 2008. That's when everybody's 401k became a 201k because they got cut in half. Now, you just said, markets are down 6%, so we're not quite there. But what you're telling me sounds like that could be on the horizon.
Well, yeah, and again, someone's going to have to blink because the American people at this moment in time, and then people around the world as well, but just usually the folks here in America, they're facing it more readily than other folks because we have a president. Whether you love him or hate him, that has nothing to do with it. Someone's going to have to blink, and who's going to be the first one to blink? Is it going to be another country that gives in to the demands of our government, or is our government going to relent? Meanwhile, while all of that's going on a very high level, we're the one who's suffering. So I said to you that tariffs are bad because they can be inflationary. Tariffs are bad because they can cause our 401ks to go down. So again, you're using goods and services that cost more to do, and your 401k, you have less money. But then the tariffs are expensive because from a tax standpoint, the good old-fashioned taxes that it's tax season, how can tariffs be expensive when it comes to tariffs or taxes?
Yeah, so I'm just kind of off the cuff here. If I'm pulling, let's say, $1,000 a month to fund my household out of my retirement account, and now everything costs 25% more, that $1,000 isn't going to cut it. I'm going to have to pull out like $1,250 a month. And now I'm pulling that more out every month. That puts more income on my tax return, which means more taxes to pay.
And so you're almost at a crossroads from a standpoint of how do I don't know about you, Joshua, but at my household, I got in a bad habit of eating regular.
And then I got my kids at home, and they like to eat regularly.
How about that, right? So things just keep going on. And if you don't have a plan in place to be able to justify or to meet these higher costs with less money, how do you subsist? Well, there's in any time of uncertainty in the world on any particular level, we can tighten our belt to a certain point. But it's always best if you have a plan in place that can be almost a dynamic. In other words, dynamic in the moment. So if things cost more, well, hey, my income went up. If things cost more, hey, my portfolio didn't go down, or my portfolio didn't go down as much. So you want to make sure that you have that dynamic plan in place. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, you need to have something that can be not just a set in stone plan, but something that can adapt to changing circumstances, because things are always going to change. Nothing is going to be the same from one day to the next, let alone 1 year to the next, 1 decade to the next. I don't know about most folks, but they plan on retiring for decades, not just a short time.
Well, and when people retire, most people want to make sure that they stay retired. And so it's a little bit, it's not a little, it's very disconcerting when you're on the cusp of retiring or you're already in retirement. So it's one thing for these things to come along at you. When you're working, you're still getting a paycheck.
Yep.
So you're getting that regular paycheck, comes in your household, goes into the budgetary accounts that you have in your household, and then it's time for another paycheck to come. The cycle just happens over and over again during your working years. But when you retire, you don't have that regular paycheck coming in to be that source of peace, if you will, in your mind. How do you do that? How do you protect yourself? And the answer is we have a team that it's not a set. We don't build retirement plans and income plans in retirement. We don't build those for to be static, because we know life is not static. Life is ever changing.
Right. It's not a crock pot. You don't set it and forget it. You keep checking on it.
Did you just call me a name?
I said crock pot, not crackpot.
It's close. So
yeah, so you don't set it and forget it. You keep reviewing these, whether it's quarterly, whether it's annually. You keep checking these things out and make sure that they are well suited to meet the changing situations. And that's why you meet with clients, not just when you bring them on board, but you meet with them on an ongoing basis through the year. Whether that's because their retirement plan needs tweaking, we talk about tax planning, making sure that all these things are working together to meet today's circumstances and to have something ready to adapt to tomorrow.
Let me give you a quick example. So I met with someone yesterday for the first time. This person was not a client, but was coming in, and their current financial advisor. So like a lot of us, we have X amount of money. It's a finite amount of money to try to make sure that we can do the kinds of things that we're trying to do, mainly retire. This person was still in the workforce, was wanting to get out of the workforce and retire. And I say that to say that they didn't have as much money. They see these tariffs coming. Inflation's been happening over the last 12 to 18 months. Things are costing more, and they wanted a new car. Their current financial advisor said, "Hey, take your Roth account and go buy a new car."
Oh, geez.
And what would you thought about that as a tax professional? How would you have responded to that?
I'd say that is an idea. I don't know if it's the best idea. Let's see what other options we have on the table, because that Roth money, the advantage there is it's going to keep growing free of tax for you. That car only decreases in value after you bought it. Maybe that is the best answer, but based on what you're telling me here, we need to go through some steps and do some planning here.
And that's where the team comes into play.
That's right. That's right. You know, at the end of the day, you want to take part in the growth of the stock market, but not the contractions. So if you want to find out if there's a way to achieve all of that, all it takes is a 15-minute call. To set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now. 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There, you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call right now with that Market Advisory Group team. When we come back, we'll be talking with Larry Clefcorn about 2 possibilities with these tariffs. And stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour. We've got Larry in the studio with us today. Larry, you've got a couple what ifs for us concerning these tariffs. Tell me more about that.
Well, this is by no means to be exhaustive, but it just brings some questions up I think everyone's asking. And so I'm touching on 2 of the what ifs that can happen from this tariff exercise that we're going through.
Exercise, it can be painful sometimes.
Yeah, you can pull a muscle or something. But so if, let's say this question, what if the tariffs are long-term, possibly permanent. Okay. I've heard it bantered around by some economists that say this may be one of the best ways to increase revenue enough to start making a difference in the national debt.
I mean, that's a good thing, but sorry, I can hear my wallet screaming.
Yeah, right. But okay, let's explore this a little bit. What if that's true? What if it would increase so much revenue, not only from the tariffs we're collecting, but the investment back into the United States of having plants built and then the workers still working here and everything, almost everything made USA. Perhaps that's going to be a help. My problem with accepting the fact that it could, make a big difference in the national debt, it seems like our people in Washington will spend every additional penny that they can.
Yeah, if there's one thing the government's good at is spending every dollar three ways.
Yeah. So, we're seeing in the market as a result of this, we're seeing some real turmoil. Now, Donald Trump called it in his joint Congress speech. He called it, there could be some disturbances. Well, this is what he was talking about. And I don't know if this even surprised him or not, but, these are disturbances in without any doubt. Danny was going through some of the numbers, and I know that can be a big deal. And it takes all hands on deck. I'm glad that when someone is really concerned about this and it involves money that in their situation has tax implications that they're concerned about, that we can pull you or one of your staff in to give expert advice and help smooth some things over in terms of, yes, you need to be worried about that, but you don't need to be worried about this.
That's right. That's right. It takes a team to put this together, that it's not just one person trying to cover all these bases, but a whole team tackling everything for the one of you being the person, we're meeting with.
Right. So what is another what if? Well, what if tariffs aren't long-term, and what if they are just temporary? When we think of that, I cannot help myself. I just hear the Treasury Secretary from the Biden administration and the Federal Reserve telling us that inflation was transitory.
Okay.
So that's what comes to my mind when I first hear, these tariffs could be temporary. But it, trying to put that aside, trying to have an open mind about this, what comes to my mind immediately is that, again, two more possibilities about this. And, it was really interesting to watch. It was almost like the president put out a little test balloon, so to speak, when he first announced tariffs on our two closest partners, Canada and Mexico. What I found interesting about that is he actually made those guys look good in a way to their constituents, to their voting base, because they called him, they hashed out some things, he negotiated, they went back with what was viewed to some degree, at least, as a win. it was a win for us because the president got some of the things he wanted.
Right.
And that was on both sides. I think that was left out of the story of what took place, but I felt like those were trial balloons in a sense.
I sure could see it that way when you highlight it like that. Yeah.
Now, even if this is just temporary, I think we're going to continue to see more and more disturbances until there is confidence in the market that this is, for the most part, settled. I have to say that I just have a feeling that there's going to be pop-up things that will come up later. I don't know about yourself.
I think that's a fair point. What happens on Wall Street isn't the entire economy. However, especially for people getting into retirement, Wall Street drives so much of how their financial life is going to work, because that's how they're going to make money, is by having things invested in Wall Street, right? And so as Wall Street ebbs and as Wall Street flows, that's going to impact the ability to have cash flow and longevity into people's retirement. And so, as these things, try to find a new stabilized normal, and then Wall Street reacts to that, that's going to cause different pain points to become evident. Whether, like Danny was saying, people are going to have to take more money out of their nest eggs to fund their cash flow, whether it is that nest eggs shrink as Wall Street drops, or if eventually some point things are going to stabilize and hopefully go back up, because we'll reach that new normal. So then nest eggs hopefully will start to expand at that point, and that's going to drive different actions and behaviors, right?
Yeah.
And so those are going to be those things that are going to pop up as we continue to move forward.
Yes. Talking about it this way tells me that we've got a number of scenarios that can work out. And I've had some people that said, because the market has dropped so much, should I stop making contributions and working them into my 401k?
Right.
And I say, dollar cost average. Keep contributing.
That's right.
Keep contributing because you're doing it at a lower price.
There you go. And if you don't have a full team working together for you, like we've talked about today, just reach out right now. All it takes to get started is a 15-minute call. You can make that call right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the entire Market Advisor Group team. Well, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking to Mark Benefiel about veterans and Medicare, and we'll be right back. Well, and welcome back into Retire Hour. I've got Mark Benefiel, Health Insurance Advisor with Market Medicare Advisors. Mark, veterans kind of have an interesting decision when it comes to Medicare and how they move forward with that. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. I get veterans. I get a lot of veterans that come into my office because I'm a veteran. Having served in the Marine Corps, and so we have kind of a connection there with a lot of the men and women that are our clients. And they do have some interesting opportunities, not so much requirements, but options to them. And Medicare often comes up, and we have different. I don't want to use the term classification for veterans, but definitely have different levels of benefits for veterans.
Oh, really?
Veteran can be like myself. I served 4 years and then got out and have moved on, with life. And so I have one kind of level of benefits. And then we have, another large group of veterans that have maybe a service-related disability. And then, of course, we have, retired veterans as well. They may also have disabilities. And so at different levels, you have different benefits, that are available to you. And
and also those benefits may be given to you at different priorities.
Oh, okay.
Right. A disabled veteran is going to have a higher priority, for care if there's a line than someone who doesn't have a disability. Right. And
That makes sense.
The Veterans Administration encourages all veterans when they turn 65 to enroll in Medicare. However, it's not necessarily required because veterans can get benefits from the VA.
Okay.
The problem is that especially as a veteran ages, he may need levels of care that the VA just isn't prepared to be able to offer him, or may not have the services available or close to home, or maybe some of the options. Maybe maybe somebody has some advanced cancer situations or things like that they may be seeking private care, but unless they have Medicare, they may not be able to have that paid for. The VA may not pay for it.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So they encourage them all to enroll in Medicare at that age. The reality is nobody has to enroll in Medicare.
Wow.
But if you enroll after your window to enroll, you could be assessed with a penalty, and that's often what happens. I'll get a veteran come into my office, 80 years old, never enrolled in Medicare, needs some services. He's been going to the VA, and now he needs Medicare. Now wants to enroll. Now he's facing a 15-year penalty for Part B and Part D.
Wow, that is crazy.
Right. And so in an effort to avoid that, we try to guide the veterans the right way. I mean, there are opportunities for retired veterans with TRICARE for Life that you're required to, if you're going to have TRICARE for Life, you're required to sign up for Medicare. But if you're a veteran outside of that, then you're not required to, but you could get hit with a penalty if you don't. So the best thing to do is come and sit down, and learn about what you have to do.
Right. The best thing is always to get answers to questions before you reach the point where you have to make decisions. And sometimes that decision that you make is not making a decision. And not making a decision probably isn't a good thing.
It's like we like to say in the sales world, a decision to not make a decision is a decision.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That happens a lot. Unfortunately, oftentimes when people do come is when they're in need of those immediate services and they don't realize that there's a process and it takes time. And we are working with the government after all. So, you could come in and enroll and need services and not even be able to get a Medicare card for 2.5 months in some cases. And then there's enrollment in the program, et cetera. I mean, it could be 90, 120 days from the time you roll into the office to actually get services rendered. A lot can happen in that time.
We're talking to Gerald in the next segment, and one of the things he talks about is that emergency planning is often tough because there's no time. And just like that's exactly what you're saying here is what I'm picking up, is that if you're waiting to make a decision, you're waiting to get those answers until you need the service, it's going to be a problem because these things take time and it can be more expensive. Like you were talking about that veteran who was 80 and was facing a 15-year penalty. That is nuts.
Yeah. Fortunately, one thing that does rise to the level of credible care is veterans' prescription drug coverage.
Oh, okay.
And so a veteran can get his prescriptions from the VA, even if he doesn't do anything else. If he have a Part D plan, or, if he doesn't have a Part D, if he goes to enroll later, that does count as credible care, and there is no penalty assessed. They can still get a Part B penalty, but the Part D penalty would apply. So, and if you don't know what Part D and Part A and Part B and all those things are, and you're a veteran, you need to know. And I would say you take the opportunity to come in, to our office. And if you weren't in the Marine Corps, I'll still see you. And I'll give you good advice.
Even if they were in the Navy?
Yeah, I will, even if they're in the Navy. I'm sure we'll trade some jokes and some barbs, but, we always do appreciate a good ride, across the ocean. But we'll be happy to help them, sit down with them, and make sure that they're aware of all the opportunities and how they fit with the VA and how they can intermingle those two. They don't necessarily play together, but they can if you're in the right situation and you know what questions to ask.
So at the end of the day, what you're saying is the best option is to talk to somebody who knows what's going on, get the answers to questions that maybe the right answer is to do nothing right now, but maybe the right answer is to make a plan and have something happen intentionally versus not making a decision be your decision.
Yeah, I found out the hard way. I come from the school of hard knocks, unfortunately. That I always learned the hard way that doing nothing is not really a good answer. It usually makes problems worse. So even if you don't know what questions to ask, that's okay. We're happy to sit down and walk through a process with you. And if the best option for you is to continue with VA care outside of Medicare, then that could be the best option for some people. And we will discuss that and certainly advise them of that fashion. So there's no pressure at all for anything that we do. We just want to make sure people have the options, the knowledge, and then if they choose to move one way or the other, we can help them with that.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, with this new administration coming in, there's almost certainly to be big changes coming to Medicare. And if you don't have someone there to talk you and walk you through these changes, these decisions, it might be time to reach out. And sometimes all it takes to get started on that is a 15-minute call to see what might be missing in your retirement plans. If you'd like to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now. 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call yourself with the Market Advisor Group team. Now, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking with Gerald Eidelman about protecting your children's inheritance from predatory spouses. We'll be right back after this. Well, hey, welcome back into Retire Hour. And with me in studio, I've got Gerald Eidelman, founder of the Eidelman Law Firm. Gerald, when blended families get into estate planning, is there any consideration that needs to be given to protecting inheritances? That's all right. That's a bit of a tongue twister for me. For the children, protecting the children with those inheritances.
Yeah, one of the things that it doesn't happen on a regular basis. I mean, one thing that happens frequently is people want to protect their children's inheritance. That's a given, and there's different ways to go about it. But once in a while, we get a client who has children, but they don't trust their spouses, or worse, a client I had a couple of days ago, he was sure that the spouse was going to take complete advantage of his daughter's inheritance.
Oh, wow.
He had expressed the fact that that's what he had been doing his whole life. I mean, he would buy her cars, and she would talk him into giving them to him. And so there was a sizable at stake, and he was concerned as to what to do. And so one of the things that we can do is to circumvent where the money goes to for the benefit of the child.
Okay.
But basically, instead of giving the child money directly, a trustee can use the money that is allocated to that beneficiary to pay their bills. So, what we come up with is, okay, so if anything that she needs to pay for, the money is going to go directly to that third party. Mm-hmm. No money going to her at all, because there was a great concern it would justify concern from experience that the money would be wasted and, spent way before its time. So it's not... I had another case where it was a similar situation where the couple had a single child, and they were married for daughter again was married for several years, and the parents had probably $1 million, $2 million in inheritance to leave all to her. Now, they already acknowledged that she wasn't very good with money. Mm-hmm. So that was one concern. But the biggest concern they had is one day, their daughter and their son-in-law were visiting their home, and I don't know if he had drank a little too much or what have you, but he made an offhanded comment, "One day all this will be mine."
Oh, geez.
And they did not take that kindly, particularly because he had a problem with alcohol. And so the combination of a daughter who was unable to handle the finances with a spouse that might prey on the goodness of the spouse or the naivety of the spouse. We had to create a special trust for them, just like we would for the other child. Basically, we set up a trust where she would be entitled to receive certain things. For example, the trust could buy her a house, but the house would not be in her name. So he could never get his hands on it. The house would be owned by the trust. She would have full use of it. She can sell it. The trust can sell it and buy her another house, but the house always remain in the control of the trust. And when you're trying to set the trust up like this, you're going to need a third-party trustee, unless you have family members who are of similar age as the beneficiary, who can carry on the duties, because we were going to be paying, like in this other case, paying her bills and doing those things. That requires somebody to manage the property of the trust. And clearly the daughter was not capable of doing that. And so they appointed me as their trustee. So when the last of the survivor of the parents passes away, I will take over the responsibility of providing for that daughter without the possibility of it being consumed by the husband, irresponsible or whatever predatory, opportunistic husband. And so that's one of the ways that we try to protect children. The other benefit of a trust is that we can protect children in case of future divorce. So, for example, we can set up a trust so that the money remains in trust, but the child can receive money herself, just not all at once. So that way the money keeps under the ownership of the trust. And should there be any marital dissolution, because that money is separated from the beneficiary, then that money wouldn't be considered part of the marital estate.
Yeah. As parents, we're kind of hardwired into trying to protect our children. And when they're little, that's, strapping a helmet on them when they're learning to ride the bike. That's, taking them out to drive so they learn how to do that appropriately. Those are things we do on our own to protect our children. But some of these things we just can't do ourselves. Some of these things are best left to professionals who do this day in and day out. You don't want to leave anything to chance with your estate, especially since you won't be there to fix issues as they pop up. If you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call just to talk to us about what might be needed, what might be missing from your retirement plan or your estate plan, reach out right now, 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisor Group team. Well, stay tuned, and when we come back, we'll be talking with Lauren Dietz about taxes and tariffs with nary a taco in sight. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back into Retire Hour. To round out the end of our show, I've got Lauren Dietz here in studio talking to me about and for taxes. Lauren, things are getting wacky to say the least, with these tariffs and the fear, the uncertainty, the despair that it's all causing. How does this impact taxpayers, the clients we're seeing, the people we're meeting? What are they going to see here?
Well, it's kind of a scary time,
to say the least.
And we have a lot of our tax clients coming in, and they're like, "What's this going to do? What do we do now?" And tariffs are a type of tax, but ultimately it's going to have an impact on how much things are going to cost for them and how far their dollar's going to get them.
It's funny, not like haha funny, but like ironic funny, how quickly the conversation switched to, well, what's going to happen when they make Social Security tax-free, to what's going to happen with all these tariffs and how is it going to impact my lifestyle now?
Yeah. Nobody's asked me about Social Security this week.
No, nobody has. Yes, that's the same experience I've had as well. And so, earlier in the show, we were talking with Danny, and we were talking about a couple different ways it will impact people. One is that their 401ks that are invested in the market will reduce in value as the market rides up and down. And so then we talked a little bit about how planning can go into that to make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Then the other thing we talked about, which I think really plays more into what you're here for, is as things become more expensive, people will need more cash flow to meet their lifestyle. Danny said, in his household, they have this bad habit of having 3 meals a day. Crazy enough, right?
That's wild.
I know. What a time to be alive. And in order to keep that up, people are going to need larger cash flows.
Right.
And if you're retired, that comes out of their nest egg. So tell us a little about what that might do.
So the tariffs are going to have an indirect impact on people with having to take out more money. That's going to push them potentially into higher tax brackets. It's going to affect how much of their Social Security is being taxed. I mean, there's a lot of kind of hidden fees with this, and people I don't think realize. I think there's a lot of confusion on how Social Security is taxed for people to begin with. So now, maybe you take $20,000 out of your IRA every year. Well, now you need to take 25, and it's it can have a lot of detrimental effects.
That's right. And, we had Mark on earlier talking about Medicare.
Yeah.
So if you're pulling more money out of your nest egg, that's going to impact.
Yeah, it can impact your Medicare premiums. You could be triggering that old Aunt Irma that nobody likes.
Yeah.
I know. Don't invite her to the cookout.
Oh, no. Tell her to stay away. Right. So then people are going to be drawing out more income. So they'll have more income flowing through their tax return, which then means when that calculation happens, they're going to be paid more for their Medicare premiums for the next year. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't even account for the fact that inflation might come in. And so what's that going to do to things like Medicare premiums? It's a whole bunch of mess coming through all at once.
Right.
And unfortunately, since these are, as they say on TV, it's a developing story, right?
Right. It could have long-term, far-reaching effects that we're not even seeing yet.
That's right. Funny enough, that's kind of what we were talking with Larry about as well. That if these tariffs stay permanent, then we'll see, become the new normal. He was talking about, maybe it will pay down the national debt. But what we didn't even get to is, well, what's that going to do to inflation? We just got to where we were almost getting inflation back under control.
Right.
And if everything costs twice as much now, what's that going to do to inflation factors? So then again, comes back to increasing cash flows, increasing tax flows.
It'd be interesting. Hypothetical question of, what's going to happen with the tax code in the future to help combat these.
That's right. I have to imagine that they're using this as a revenue raiser so that they can then
maybe lower taxes elsewhere.
That's right. I don't know if that washes out even for people, though.
Right.
Yeah. That's just, these economic things aren't just hey, let's measure what's going on right now. We've got to see how things play out. There's ripple effects. How far do those ripples spread? How big are those ripples?
Yeah.
And
it's like a tsunami.
Some of them might be like a tsunami. You're absolutely right. But it's just short-term disruptions, short-term disturbances. And so as people are trying to play these things out in their lives, especially their retirement lives, where you don't have quite as many options as you might when you're still working, you need to have a plan to kind of try to walk through these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's where we sit down with people, right? With the financial advisors, and we put together plans.
Right.
Sometimes those are income plans. Sometimes those are tax plans. Taxes are really an inevitable part of life. We all have to pay taxes in one form or another.
Right.
We talk about these tariffs. Tariff is the government taking money. Just
it's
like
a tax.
Really, it is just like a tax. There are ways to mitigate some of these taxes, though. and try to have some control over how much you have to pay. But to get started down that path, you got to start somewhere. And to get started down that path, you got to start somewhere. And sometimes all it takes is a 15-minute call to see if you might be paying more for any of these pieces more than what you have to be. So to make an appointment to get that call started, reach out right now. You know, you're driving, pull over, give us a call, 833-MAG Report. That's 833-624-7376. Or if you're not driving, go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, hear stories where we talk about other people dealing with these situations, other problems people run into, and how we help them navigate through these things. You can submit your own question. Maybe you've got something that's come up that we haven't talked about yet. And submit a question. We'll send you out some swag, and we can then talk about that here on the radio. Or you can schedule that call with the entire Market Advisory Group team. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. I'm Joshua Cicora. Thank you for tuning in to Retire Hour. We'll see you here next week.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.